Friends, on the 15th August, Putin and Trump met at Anchorage. There was a fly past, there was a warm handshake between Trump and Putin. A 3 hours meeting, a press conference where no questions were answered by both the heads of state, and they left with the media people shouting the questions, but none of them answered any of these questions. There was no deal, no ceasefire, and an invite to Trump to visit Moscow. And here, Trump did not give out any details of what happened during the meeting. Though in an interview to Fox News later on, he said that a deal was going to happen in the near future, but he did not give out any details. Spoke to Zelensky on telephone, and Zelensky will be meeting him on Monday. But then what happened? Remember, Trump is a businessman and Putin a shrewd politician and a rigid man. He will not give way just with arm twisting tactics or sweet talks. He has been on this war for the last 4 years and will try to get his share of meat out of the complete deal. 4 years are on. I also have shot about 4 videos on the progress of this war which are going on. But then, in the last 6 months, Russia has intensified its attacks on Ukraine. Also, India was contemplating some relief from the 50% tariffs because of siding with Moscow, because Trump has tried his arm twisting with India to get it down on its knees. But then there was no deal, no ceasefire. And it is said that Putin will talk to Zelensky directly, but then he doesn't recognize Zelensky as the head of state of Ukraine, doesn't bother about him. Russia has been pounding Ukraine, and the village of Yadovnika in eastern Donetsk region has been pounded. Last month itself, the losses have been about 33,000, and Russia has grouped up about 9,000 more people. 533 Russian drones have been rained onto Ukraine. 8 missiles have been fired into Ukraine, and 5 have got through the air defense system. In July, again, 5,100 guided aerial bombs were thrown, 3,800 drones and 26 missiles were fired into Russia. Russia is also recruiting more manpower. It is planning to set up 10 more divisions, and it is said that 2 already have been created and are standing up. So what does Putin really want? What are his requirements? Zelensky says that Putin wants part of Donetsk region that Russia does not occupy, in addition to keeping the Luhansk region, and has also demanded from Ukraine's east. In 2014 January, he was allowed to take Crimea, and this led to the occupation of the Donetsk and the Luhansk regions. And Zelensky basically is against these pro-Moscow separatists because he feels that again another let go onto Putin will divide Ukraine more. And if Putin has his way, what Russia claims is Luhansk, Donetsk as well as Zaporizhia and Kherson regions. So nearly about quarter of Ukraine will be out of Kyiv's hand, and there will be a buffer zone which will be there between Ukraine and Russia. So this free portion of Donetsk region is particularly important because it contains a 50-kilometer or a 30-mile long fortress belt of heavily fortified cities like Sovietsk, Kramatorsk, Zuvika and Konstantinova. So these have been fortified, and if these are seized, Ukraine will lie exposed and their ability to defend its remaining areas will be very, very difficult. So Putin's aim in this whole war is very clear. He will only concede to a ceasefire or an end to this war if all this area is given to him. And he has got three primary reasons for all this. And these three reasons are: stop the expansion of NATO, and then no militarization of the area along the Russian borders, and going back to areas by NATO to the 1997 Russia-NATO agreement. Putin has firmly repeated these demands throughout the crisis and will not bow down to it. Firstly, without flexibility, these hardline put resolutions out of the zone of possible agreement because the first element cannot be met without sacrificing Ukraine's sovereignty and territorial integrity. And this is an issue that strikes at the heart of the UN Charter and Western values for which the European countries are supporting Ukraine. Second, Putin's demands are positional in nature. Bargaining over hard position locks out conversation about legitimate underlying concerns and how these concerns can be addressed in different ways. So finally, such positional bargaining restricts the open space for value creating option generation and fails to actually resolve the concerns underlying the positions. And a long-term agreement is unlikely. So unless Putin changes his demands and does not claim the unoccupied territories of Ukraine, and without these hurting the NATO or the European sentiments, there cannot be an end or a ceasefire. Though Trump blames Biden for having let the war start or not having the capability to end it, and Trump is trying to act as the peacemonger of the world, making agreements between nations and trying to be the harbinger of peace. And Putin has his aim very clear on his demands. So these meets between Trump and Putin are not going to end in any way unless Zelensky concedes and meets Putin directly, that is if Putin wants to meet, so that there can be an end to this war, end to all this destruction that has happened because Ukraine has totally been reached to the ground. And they are again garnering up their forces because Russia is pounding them day in and day out. So let us see what happens in the future and how this war takes shape. Jai Hind.